I'm trying to play catch up on several films that aired on TCM last week that I meant to watch, and then I watched Wonder Woman. Not Wonder Woman. Because I watched Wonder Woman, I watched Supergirl all weekend, catching up on the season and a half that I was behind. So then I got behind on all the movies I wanted to watch on TCM. So tonight, to try to catch up, I watched three films that were relatively short. The first one is from 1953. It was directed by Delmer Daves, and it's called Never Let Me Go, not to be confused with the 2010 um, dystopic sci-fi romance Never Let Me Go. This Never Let Me Go is also romance, but also an adventure film set at the beginning of the Cold War, starring Clark Gable and Gene Tierney. Clark Gable is a war reporter who's still in Russia after the war, and Gene Tierney is a Soviet ballerina that has slowly fallen in love with him and learned English. And as soon as her English is good enough, she starts talking to him, and he's like, "Oh shit, I love you too, let's get married." But then he pisses off the head people, and they kick him out of the country and then refuse to let her come, and then he has to like get a boat from England and go and rescue her. That's the film. It's one of those movies where you can tell that men wrote it. It's from a novel by men, a lot of men. And for me, the more interesting story would be the women that were left behind and how they survived, their day-to-day lives waiting for the possible reuniting with their husbands, right? And they also, risk their lives to marry these men and to get out of this country to be with them. And that's not the focus of the movie at all. It's the focus of like big strong men on the boats drinking vodka to knock out, the Soviet Navy and things like that. And I'm like, I don't care. And also this is towards the end of sort of Clark Gable's career. He had another 10 years to go, but he was getting old and losing his charm. And this happened to a lot of stars. Like Robert Taylor got really gruff towards the end of his career too, and some of those later films are really hard to watch. Same goes for Clark Gable, whereas Gene Tierney is like at the top of her game here, and her Russian accent is perfect, and she's just like, she lights up the screen, and I just want to see more of her and less of Gable's character, and unfortunately that's not how this film goes. So that was Never Let Me Go. I think it's on DVD from Warner Archive Collection, but it's still on TCM for another day. So if you want to watch it today, you can. The next film I watched was a very short film from 1936 called Trouble for Two. And it stars Robert Montgomery and Rosalind Russell, and it is an adaptation of a short story collection by Robert Louis Stevenson called The Suicide Club. So it follows a fictional prince and his manservant who, the prince has an arranged marriage. He doesn't want to marry this chick, so he runs away. They go to London. On the way to London, he meets another girl that he's interested in. Obviously, you know where that's headed. And follows her and discovers that she's part of a suicide club, which is rich people paying money to play a card game, and whoever gets one card has to kill the person who gets the other card in such a way that it appears to be an accident, but everyone's suicidal so that they can die without shaming their families. It's really weird. I really want to read the book, actually. It's fascinating. It's a little clunky, but Robert Montgomery is very charming. Rosalind Russell does not get enough screen time. It's another one of those early movies, like pre The Women, when Roz was just not getting her due. God, she's great. And Frank Morgan is the manservant, and he's really good. He's very funny, and I always enjoy his screen presence. So this is a strange film, but if you like any of those actors, you will enjoy this film. Also, it includes one of my favorite tropes in movies, men smoking cigars while taking baths right next to each other. I love it. It shows up in a lot of movies, mostly Westerns, surprisingly in this movie with a man and his manservant. But it's always a good touch when that happens in a movie. Oh, and Robert Montgomery has a very, very strange mustache. So if you are interested in a mustachioed Robert Montgomery, this is a movie for you. The final movie I watched is one of William Haynes's first speaking films. This would be 1931's Just a Gigolo with Jack Conway. I also discovered there's a 1978 film called Just a Gigolo that's not related at all. It was directed by David Hemmings and stars David Bowie and contains Marlene Dietrich's final performance. That's not the Just a Gigolo I watched tonight, but it's the Just a Gigolo I'll be hunting down and watching soon. This version was also very clunky. It's an early sound film, clearly a stage adaptation. William Haynes is a playboy London rich dude who needs to get married, and he doesn't want to settle down, and his family have picked a wife for him, and he's just like, ugh. And so he goes to the south of France and pretends to be a gigolo, as we all do when we get stuck in arranged marriages. But he then happens to find the woman that his family's trying to arrange him with, but they haven't met yet, so he pretends to be this gigolo and woos her, and shenanigans ensue. It's very creaky. William Haynes is super gay. This was part of TCM's Gay Hollywood Spotlight. William Haynes is super gay, and like they knew this. He was very out, and they try to get him to tone it down a lot in his talkie films, but he's so clearly not into women that it's hilarious in a good way. And I love him. I think he's just such a charming actor. But I love him in his silence a little bit more than his talkies. So if you can go back and find some of his silent films that he made, he's so charming. It's a short film. It's only 66 minutes, and it feels long though because it's so clunky in that they hadn't quite figured out how to get sound recorded well, but also still have action, which is why I love late era silent films so much. Is they really had such fluid camera movements and are so beautiful and so artistic, like Sunrise and Wings, and then the sound came and films just got clunky, and it's depressing. But then they get unclunky, so just ride the wave. So this was Just a Gigolo from 1931, directed by Jack Conway. These are the 3 movies I watched tonight. They're all available on Watch TCM. I know that Never Let Me Go is on DVD from Warner Archive. I'm not sure about Trouble for Two or Just a Gigolo. They might not be available on DVD. They are all from MGM, though, I think, so they could be. I don't know. Have a good night, and I'm going to keep watching too many movies.